When we think about modesty in fashion, our minds often jump to a singular narrative, one dominated by European ideals. But here's the truth. Modesty is not a one-size-fits-all concept, and its history is as diverse as the cultures that define it. Africa and Europe have both had rich histories of modesty in dress, but their approaches, rooted in culture, climate, and belief systems, couldn't be more different. In this video, we're diving deep into the history of modest fashion on these two continents, exploring how each developed its own unique relationship with modesty, and what that says about society, identity, and tradition. And here's the kicker. While European modesty has often been defined by religion and societal norms, African modesty is rooted in community, functionality, and vibrant self-expression. Let's break it all down. To understand modesty in Europe, we need to look at how religion and social hierarchy shaped fashion. Religious influence. Christianity played a significant role in defining modesty across Europe. During the Middle Ages, clothing was designed to reflect humility and morality, especially for women. High necklines, long sleeves, and flowing robes became symbols of piety and virtue. The Renaissance and Baroque periods saw stricter modesty standards among the upper class, with corsets, heavy fabrics, and layers designed to conceal the body. Class and social status. Modesty wasn't just about religion, it was also tied to social status. The wealthy wore modest clothing to signify their refinement, while peasants dressed modestly out of necessity due to limited access to expensive materials. The Victorian era, modesty as a moral code. By the 19th century, modesty became synonymous with morality, especially for women. Victorian fashion emphasized full coverage with high collars, long skirts, and gloves to signify respectability. In Africa, modesty took on an entirely different meaning, shaped by climate, cultural diversity, and communal identity. Cultural modesty across regions. West Africa. Traditional garments like the bubu and kaftan emphasized loose flowing silhouettes that covered the body while allowing comfort in hot climates. These outfits were often adorned with bold patterns and colors that reflected individuality and status. North Africa. Islamic influence brought styles like the jellaba and abayas, which combined modesty with intricate craftsmanship such as embroidery and beadwork. Southern Africa. Tribal attire often prioritized modesty through symbolic elements like beadwork and layering. Modesty here wasn't about concealment, but about presenting oneself in a way that honored tradition and community. Unlike Europe, where modesty was often tied to morality or status, African modesty was largely practical. Loose-fitting garments protected the skin from the sun, while cultural customs dictated what was considered modest for different occasions. So what's the difference between African and European modesty? It boils down to purpose and expression. European modesty, restriction, and status. European modesty has historically been restrictive, often tied to rules about class, gender, and morality. It was less about functionality and more about upholding societal norms. For example, corsets and heavy fabrics prioritized appearance over comfort, reflecting the rigid structures of European societies. In Africa, modesty wasn't about adhering to rigid societal rules. Instead, it was a balance of practicality and self-expression. Bright colors, bold patterns, and flowing designs allowed individuals to showcase their identity while respecting cultural norms. Today, modesty in both Africa and Europe is undergoing a transformation influenced by globalization, religion, and modern fashion trends. The revival of African modesty. Modern African designers are reclaiming traditional modesty, blending cultural garments with contemporary aesthetics. For example, brands like Tongoro and Imane Ayisi are bringing African modest fashion to the global stage. Young Africans are redefining modesty to align with their cultural roots while embracing global influences, using fashion as a form of identity and empowerment. Europe's shift toward diversity. In Europe, modesty is no longer confined to religious or traditional norms. The rise of modest fashion influencers and brands has made modesty more inclusive, catering to diverse styles and backgrounds. Muslim communities in Europe have also played a significant role in popularizing modest fashion, merging traditional elements with Western trends. What can we learn from the histories of modesty in Africa and Europe? Modesty is not a singular concept. It's deeply tied to culture, geography, and personal values. African modesty teaches us that practicality and self-expression can coexist, while European modesty reminds us of the evolving relationship between clothing, status, and morality. Both continents show that modest fashion is more than clothing. It's a reflection of values, beliefs, and identity. By understanding its history, we can appreciate its richness and diversity today. So, whether it's the flowing garments of Africa or the structured layers of Europe, modest fashion has a fascinating history that continues to evolve. What does modesty mean to you? Is it about tradition, personal style, or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more deep dives into fashion and culture. See you in the next video.